Alright, y'all, it's your boy I Grind Yu-Gi-Oh! We back with another reaction video. We are reacting to Joshua Smith's top 64 White Forest Runick deck profile. Like, comment, subscribe, leave in the comments, let me know what future videos you all would like to see. And basically we're reacting to this video and letting you all know what I like and what I don't dislike, and also the theory behind his deck profile, and we're gonna see what we agree with and what we could move forward and fix in the deck. So let's get into it.
Second, I just want to say I had a great time meeting everybody at the event, playing tons of different Yu-Gi-Oh retro formats and all that, so shout outs to all the people I hang out with during the weekend. But obviously I know what you're here for. I played White Forest Runick at the tournament and I ended up making it into the top 64. Before we hop into the exact list, I want to give a couple shout outs, mainly to the people I prepped with. Shout outs to Pack for always being there to bounce some ideas off. That's always very helpful, as well as Vince, who also made top 64 with the deck, and we talked about the deck a couple days before the event and we ended up playing very similar lists. So shout outs to SmartGuard for helping me get my hands on the Infinite Forbidden cards, and also a shout out to Holon Card Shop for the OCG sleeves, the Synchro sleeves for the extra deck. Very fitting. Check out their links in the description down below, all that good stuff. And obviously shout outs to all the other sponsors of the channel. All the links are going to be in the description down below. I played Runick White Forest because I simply did not want to play Snake Eyes. I did not actually think it is the best deck in the format, but I did take it kind of seriously in the preparations, and I think we came up with some interesting decisions or interesting choices for the list. It basically pales in comparison to some of the things that Snake Eyes or Fiendsmith engines can do, but it still is a very, very strong deck in my opinion, so I'm happy I was able to do it.
Also, playing a deck like this gives you a advantage in the format. The deck isn't figured out and people don't really know how to play against it, so also choosing a deck like this could also give you a pre-advantage, you know, knowing how to play something that you like and something that you want to move forward with and theorize with that people haven't figured out yet. So I agree with him playing this deck.
At least some justice by getting it into the top 64. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the cards and maybe explain a little bit along the way, because I noticed that from some of my opponents, not everyone is familiar with the White Forest cards. We've got 3 LZ of the White Forest. This card lets you send a spell trap from your hand or field to the graveyard, then it special summons itself from the hand and add the White Forest monster from deck to hand. During your opponent's turn, if you special summon a spellcaster tuner, you add it from the graveyard to the hand. Then you've got 3 Sylvies, which is the best normal summon of the deck, level 4 tuner. If it's normal or special, you can add a White Forest spell trap from your deck to your hand, and if it's in your graveyard as a quick effect, you can target a White Forest Synchro on your field or in your graveyard to return it to the extra deck and then summon this, but its effect is negated if you summon it back that way. Both of the level 4 White Forest tuners have that graveyard effect, the other one being Rusia, however you pronounce it. This one is a special summon. If you control a White Forest monster, you can send a spell trap to the graveyard from hand or field as well to draw a card. Usually this card is not being played as a 3-up. In my opinion, it was definitely correct to play at least 2. As this is another Runick Synchro combo deck, you do want to have a very high chance of opening with a bunch of Runicks and access to your tuner. So I kind of...
Okay, I agree with him with these ratios. The Z you definitely want to have at 3 and use it as a starter, because you could pitch any spell or the Whitewood spell and let the Whitewood spell set itself, but also you get her and you get the free body of the level 4 tuner as a special summon, and then you get that effect to add another add another card to hand. And also the Rusia, playing at, I've been testing out a little bit. I prefer to play it at 2 or maybe 3. I haven't tried 3 yet, but 3 is really good because you could use it as an extender and get another body on field, and also you could pitch another spell trap and draw a card. So basically you want to just get into your plays. So I kind of like these ratios that he has.
I wanted to max out on the tuners, but obviously you got to deal with at some point drawing too many White Forest cards that don't work because you draw like multiple normal summons or something. This one does not have this problem, simply because if you draw it as your only White Forest, you're still happy about it because it's a level 4 tuner, so it allows you to go into your very important level 6 synchros. And if you draw multiple White Forest cards, then this one is still an extender, right? So this is technically the best one to draw in multiple. So what we have here is we have a good normal summon. This one is exclusively a special summon, and this one can be a normal or special summon. So no matter what pairing you draw, you're going to be fine. So let's very quickly talk about a card that is not in my deck, and that is a Stellar of the White Forest, which might surprise a lot of people, or will probably surprise a lot of people, because this is like the White Forest card that you will find in like almost any like combo tutorial or combo video about White Forest. This is always the fancy starter that does everything. But the problem with this card is that it's not a tuner, and it's by far the most vulnerable card in the deck, because if you normal summon this and get hand trapped, you have no way to access a tuner unless you hard draw YUGIOH. Basically, it's just a nice bonus if you open with a Stellar and it resolves, because then you have like the level 2 body on the board, and that later on can summon itself back from the graveyard. But this is a Runick version of the deck, so you can already spam level 2 bodies very easily. So taking that risk of normal summoning a Stellar over any other White Forest normal summon is not worth it. I would...
Okay, I agree with him. If it does get interacted with, you don't have a tuner on board, and you know it's just a waste. But also, if you normal summon the level 4, the normal summon the level 4 tuner, and it gets imperm the Veiler, you really still don't have a play unless you open up the Zet or open up the Rusia. So basically, you're in the same situation. But I also agree with him that it is just a bonus. But I believe you would like to start with that card, and if you could get it to resolve, you can get it to resolve. Either one of the little level 2s, if you get them to resolve, you're off to your play. So I kind of see why he didn't play it, but I mean, I don't agree with it, but it is something that's just extra. And the others do still allow you to get your plays off.
Would much rather normal summon a Rusia or a Sylvie to have a guaranteed level 4 tuner even if they get interacted.
I agree with
In
the
order to
level,
maintain a high
level
White
4,
Forest count, I played these 9, which is definitely enough. If anything, I would even cut the Rusia after the tournament, but a Stellar is a card that I do not think belongs in the deck in the current format, at least not in the Runick version. To round off the White Forest cards, we got one Tails, which is in my opinion the worst card in the deck, simply because it unfortunately does not work if you don't already have a White Forest card. So this card does not increase consistency at all, because this card adds a White Forest monster from your deck to your hand, but you can only activate it if you control an illusion or spellcaster. If you could summon a Runick that was an illusion or spellcaster, this would be an amazing card. Unfortunately, there is none. Drawing this card alone as your only White Forest card is not great. And then there's Woes. Both of the White Forest spell traps, by the way, if they are sent for cost to activate a monster effect, they can reset themselves to the field, which also works with Hugin, which is nice. But Woes is the better one, or the one that provides interruption on your opponent's turn, because it lets you special summon a White Forest from your deck and then immediately synchro summon a White Forest synchro monster, which obviously they have that one that lets you basically Book of Eclipse your opponent's board, which is very strong. Those are all...
I agree with both the White Forest cards, the spell and the one trap being one of us, because you don't want to draw multiples of the spell, and then like you said, you can't use it because you don't control one of the monsters. So basically you want to just play Runicks and then be able to pitch it and then have it set itself. So the one of us that you can just search them is also, you know, just good.
All the White Forest
I don't
cards
disagree with them playing
11,
that.
and then we'll move over into obviously the Runick package. Now the idea here is obviously the White Forest cards, as you can tell, are really good at providing tuners. So you can see how we can spam level 4 tuners here, very similar to what you would do with like a Quem in Runick Bestial, but you have basically more
basic
copies
Runick
of
stuff.
Quem because you can play a lot of good White Forest starters. 3 Tip, 3 Flashing Fire, 3 Freezing Curses, 3 Runick Destruction, 3 Slumber, 2 Dispelling, and 1 Smiting Storm. So 18 quick play spells. This deck has a surprising amount of room for Runicks and non-engine, because the White Forest engine is actually very slim. So it's like 11 cards, 9 of them are starters. The worst cards, quote unquote, are still free discards for Hugin. So a very efficient build. Basically, I played these 18 plus 2 Fountain, obviously, plus the 11 White Forest, which left me with 9 non-engine. Going back, I would have cut 1 or 2 non-engines to play even more Runicks. I know I say this every time I bring a Runick deck to a tournament, but in this one I really felt like I maxed out on non-engine because I felt like it was a good idea. But at the end of the day, I don't think the non-engine won me that many games. I wanted even more consistency. I wanted to guarantee even more Runick draws in certain situations, because
I agree with the consistency, because I've been testing the deck also, and the last thing you want to do is not be able to start playing. So basically you want to get into your Runick stuff, get your engine going, get your draws going. I believe the best way to play this deck is to just have the max consistency and the max draw power that you basically can. So I agree with him on that aspect. Just play Runick and get your plays rolling and just play from there, because you don't want to fumble and draw too many Whitewood cards.
sometimes it was really like down to, I'm resolving this fountain, I need to find 1 or 2 more Runicks, like a little more gas, and then I can break this board or secure the game, whatever. And then sometimes I would draw into more non-engine and it wouldn't quite work out. Or more White Forest monsters. That happened a couple times as well. Maybe cutting 1 White Forest monster and 1 or 2 non-engines to be able to super hyper consistently play like 19 or 20 Runick spells would be nice. But I was still happy with the 18. So that leaves, like I said, room for 9 non-engine, and I decided to go for 3 talents and 3 evenly matched. Basically, talents is just an all-around good card, whether you're going first or second. I wish I played 2. It happened a lot that I would like activate a talents, draw another talent, or activate activate talents, then resolve fountain, draw another talents. I've often been playing 2 talents in my Runick combo builds, and maybe I should have just done that again. I kind of last minute added in the third one. I sided it out a lot simply because I noticed relatively early into the event that I'm feeling more comfortable with 2. That just seems like the right number for me on that card.
I think one thing he could have did was play 2 talents 2 evenly and then maybe 3 thrusts. That way you could still thrust into the talents, or you could thrust into the evenly, regardless of which one you need, and you could just get your plays going. Also, you could get the Whitewoods card, the Whitewoods spell, and the Whitewoods trap. So I think thrust may have unclogged his deck a little bit. I think that probably would have been a good option.
Evenly matched was not that great for me. Unironically, the idea behind it is that if you resolve evenly matched against a Fiendsmith Snake Eye, their follow-up is actually very, very poor because they have so little extra neck space now and they only play 1 Flamberge. If they go for the full combo with Desiree, which is not a guarantee, they don't always go for that, but if they do, you can pair the evenly with a lot of cards to still make it go through. For example, if you have Tip for Destruction, what you do is you simply enter the battle phase and then you go Destruction or you Tip for Destruction and you Destruction the equip spell on the Desiree because that one can be targeted, and then the Desiree can no longer negate the evenly matched and you just resolve the evenly, right? So if you pair the evenly with those, you just get it through, or you have a second evenly. That's another option. Another option is if you call battle phase, a lot of opponents will bring up the IP Masquerena with the Flamberge, make an SP Little Knight to be better off against evenly. In that case, you can use talents to bait the Desiree as well, or you can use Freezing Curses or Flashing Fire on the Appaloosa and then use any other runic spell to make a Gary crash into something and then pop the equip spell with the Gary and then evenly match. There's a lot of combinations that you can use to force through the evenly matched. In worst case, even if you don't have a way to force it through, it still forces the Desiree negate, so you can maybe play in main phase 2. That was the idea. I feel like evenly was a good decision. I just didn't get very lucky with it. I had matches like my top 64 match going second into Rescue.
It'll be games like
I would
that where you
have
just
definitely won if I had evenly matched. They ended on no negate, like 5 sets, full board, not even an IP Masquerena. Like evenly matched would have totally cooked, but I didn't have it. I drew it very often going first. I drew it relatively rarely going second. I drew it off of Fountain a lot. I had double evenly matched going second against Snake Eye once, and that was the only game in the entire tournament where my Snake Eye opponent bricked and just didn't do anything, so my going second hand was actually pretty poor, but I still had to start playing because if they draw a starter next turn, I will lose because they have a battle phase, so I had to use Runics and both of my evenlies were dead for the rest of the game pretty much. Still, I think the decision to...
Even if the evenly and the triple tactics is dead, you can still pitch it as a spell or trap. So that's the good thing about this deck. If you can't use a card and it's still a spell or trap, you still could get your plays going. You can still combo off.
Play evenly is fine. In a deck like White Forest, I definitely wanted my non-engine to be spell traps so that you can send them for your White Forest effects in case you don't have them. And this is one of the other reasons why I really enjoyed playing the 3 Rushas, because the send 1 spell trap and draw 1 is on paper a ±0. In this deck, very often you can just send a duplicate Runic, and evenly you don't need anymore a duplicate talent. So even though I did feel like I drew these a little bit too often in situations where I couldn't use them, the fact that I played 3 Rushas definitely mitigated that and let me replace them.
I think the 3 of extender is very, very much needed because there are situations where you're playing this deck and you're like, man, if I had that 1 extra card plus the body on field, a free special summon body tuner, you know, you could get your plays off. So I think I agree with the 3 moving forward.
With a fresh draw, so that was nice. And then there's this last card, which y'all are not gonna like to see what this is, but I did main deck 3 skill drains. This card is too powerful in this deck because all of your White Forest stuff sends for cost. So what you do is you simply flip skill drain, your opponent is under it, and then you use a Rushia, send it for cost, or an LZ, send it for cost, and then you can play your turn not under skill drain. You can even add skill drain back with the level 8 synchro so that you can put your opponent under skill drain again.
I haven't tried the skill drain, but I think I'm gonna add it in the deck and, you know, get a couple of matches in, see how it goes. But I mean, I definitely like the idea for sending it for cost. You know, you can't beat that, so let's keep going.
Card is disgusting in this deck. I feel like if they keep making decks that can send your own floodgates away on your own turn, they have to ban skill drain at this point. I mean, if you're looking at the current format, that card is just way too powerful. So yeah, skill drain is unironically a card that I did not even side out going second into Snake Eye because you can just let them make the board, play into it a little bit, maybe get rid of 1 or 2 threats, set skill drain, and literally vibe under it for a couple turns until you can break their board. I didn't draw it as much but it definitely won me a bunch of games. Going first, you actually don't really need it unless you get hand trapped a bunch. There was a couple games where I got hand trapped 2 or 3 times and then I set a skill drain and it was completely fine. There were other games where I played through literally 3 or 4 hand traps and still ended on my board, because this deck is good at playing through hand traps. If you draw a solid combination of White Forest monsters and Runick cards, it's like no problem at all. But there are some hands where like it just makes your life easier, right? You go first, it doesn't matter what kind of hand traps your opponent has. If you have a skill drain, you're probably gonna win game 1 unless your hand is terrible. I lost 1 game under my own skill drain simply because I drew like 2 talents, 2 evenly matched, and like Fountain, I think, throughout the first couple turns, and I just got beaten to death. But overall, this card is insane in general and especially in this deck. Call me a Runick stun Andy, I guess. So that's the main deck, 40 cards. I would have definitely cut
40
a couple
cards
tactics talents for another Runick, either a Smiting Storm or a Third Dispelling, or maybe even a Golden Droplet if you want to reduce the chance of drawing duplicates.
More Runick options is good, but like I said, maybe a Thrust to help get you into the talents or the evenly match, and that'll definitely get you rolling.
Is what I would suggest. Otherwise, I have no complaints about the main deck. For the extra deck, you definitely need 3 Hugins in this deck because you go through 2 almost every time on your first turn combo, and so it is, I think, really important to have the third one to protect from Duster or Lightning Storm. In the grind game, the third one also just comes up. I also play.
Okay, I've been playing 2, but I haven't really tested out 3. I haven't really gotten into the grind game that much, but I can see what 3 comes up.
Played 2 Garys. There's a very specific reason for the second Gary, which was that I wanted to try and fit Daigusto Emerald into this deck, but I couldn't. It was Gary and Emerald or 2 Garys, and I felt like because there's no guarantee I can actually resolve the Emerald because they might just negate it or get rid of it when I summon it, I'm just gonna play the second Gary and play it safe. I did miss Emerald 1 or 2 times throughout the tournament, but the second Gary came in handy a lot of times. 5 Runick Fusions is a good chunk. You know, usually you will play like 4, but I feel like it was worth it. And that is because this next part, which is the White Forest Synchros, is super recyclable because your level 4 tuners always shuffle these back into the deck. The best one is Diabel, which you try to end on.
The shuffle back effect of the cards of the White Forest Synchros are very good. You can just use the effect and then you can shuffle them back to dodge stuff. So I like the fact that you could be able to use that while the level 4 tuners are engraved.
This is a level 8 Synchro that if you summon it using a tuner Synchro monster, you can add any spell trap from your graveyard back to your hand. Whether it is a Runick tip that you activated earlier in the turn, another cool thing in this deck that you can do is very often with talents in earlier Runick decks, it was like you open talents and you're like, well, do I discard it for Hugin? Because if my opponent doesn't have a hand trap, then I won't want it. But if they do have a hand trap, I want to keep it. In this deck, what you can do is you can just pitch it, and then if your opponent does have a hand trap, you can add it back later and use it.
Definitely.
Also insane in the grind game, of course. The more important effect on this card, though, is that during your opponent's turn, or not only during your opponent's turn, but whenever your opponent activates a card or effect similar to SP Little Knight, you can send a spell trap from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon any Synchro tuner from your extra deck graveyard of banishment. So what you summon most of the time with this is Silvera, which is on summon, book your opponent's entire board. It also makes your synchros bigger, your illusion and spellcasters by 500, lets them do double piercing damage, which came in handy a couple of times when I did have a battle phase.
Double piercing.
And then RCLI is the one that you make on turn 1 with Hugin plus a level 4 tuner, because this one on summon lets you send a spell trap for cost to add any White Forest spell trap from your deck to your hand. It also makes your spellcasters and illusion synchros not be able to be destroyed by card effects, which I don't think that came in handy even once, but in theory it can help against Promethean Princess. Then there's a Chaos Angel. This card is phenomenal. Obviously you can make this with light plus dark very consistently, because Gary plus the level 6s makes this light and dark, which is actually really powerful against the Fiendsmith Snake Eye deck. They can basically only out it with Droplet or Imperm, so phenomenal card. Cheng Ying is the main way how you outgrind Snake Eye. This deck actually can compete with Snake Eye in a grind game. You just have to start playing the game, which is the problem going second sometimes. You know, to set up such an oppressive board that you can't even get going. But if you do get going, this deck actually outgrinds Snake Eyes relatively well, especially if they make a little mistake here and there because they're not familiar with the cards. The main purpose of this card is obviously banishing a lot of their crucial one-ofs. If you can banish a crucial part out of the Fiendsmith extra deck, that complete engine can fall apart. If you banish the one-of Flamberge, the one-of Promethean, the one-of Snake Eye Diabel Star, like you can really mess up their grind games.
I agree with both the big boys right here, the level 10 synchros. I have another big guy that I'm gonna play in the deck, but I'll let you know when I make another video in the future, and I'll let you know why. But I'm gonna get into the theory of my decisions and why I made those, but we'll have a future video on that.
super well. The goal going second is basically pick apart their board, make a Cheng Ying, resolve it once, and then on your opponent's turn it's still here, it still banishes 2 more cards, and it's really hard for Snake Eye to push through this. So this is your main win condition, I would say, against Snake Eye. We're still playing Coral Dragon and Tri-Edge Master because the level 6 synchro summoning in this deck is just so relevant. This one is also another way you can very easily go into Chaos Angel, you make this, draw a card, then you summon Gary, Light and Dark. Coral Dragon is something you can summon off of Diabell as well because it is a synchro tuner. The main purpose for this card is that it is a tuner as well, so this can also make you a Diabell together with a Hugin to get a draw, and you can use this card effect very well to obviously clear your opponent's board when you don't have a battle phase. There's a Zapper Shrimp. This card is nice. You can summon it off of Diabell on summon. It lets you send any other card to the graveyard to pop a spell trap, which is really good against Tenpai actually, because if you end on Diabell against Tenpai, even if they have the field spell, in response to the field spell activation, you can use Diabell to summon out Zapper Shrimp, pop the field spell, and then Zapper Shrimp is a quick effect synchro. So you can make a Chaos Angel on your opponent's turn, or a Cheng Ying depending on what you want. So really neat card. Doesn't come up often, but when it does, it's really powerful because you need a good reason to not go into the book effect of Silvera because that's so powerful. But you can technically also do that with the trap, right? Like what you do with this deck very often, obviously it's a Runick combo deck. There's no super straight like lines. It's just depending on what you draw and what kind of Runicks and what Fountain draws. But you basically always end on Diabell plus the trap card. You can either do...
The trap card is almost low-key the key of the deck, so you want to always set that up and draw it off the level 6 synchro, and no, not the level 6, the level 4 tuner. You want to search that and then set it always as the first card because you want your follow-up and you want to have plays on your opponent's turn, have interactions. So always
the Zapper Shrimp play plus the book play, you can also book twice because the book effect on this is not once per turn. So what you can do is you can go Diabell, summon it out, then you can use one of the tuners in the graveyard to put it back into the extra deck, and then you can synchro into it with the woes. So you can book your opponent's board twice even though you only play the synchro once. And then obviously we have SP and we have Typhon. Typhon is especially important going second if you draw Skill Drain because you really need to get that Desiree off the board of the Snake Eye opponent because otherwise the Desiree, once it hits the graveyard, can send your Skill Drain. So bouncing it to the extra deck is very crucial. This is the extra deck. It's relatively tight. Honorable mentions that I wanted to play but couldn't fit include Baguska and Daigusto Emerald. It was either Emerald and Baguska or Coral Dragon and Giri. I went for these and I summoned Coral Dragon a lot, so I'm happy I made that decision. The side deck, 3 Phantasme and 3 Mold Charmies. My philosophy is basically I already play a good chunk of non-engine in my main deck for going second, and I don't really want to oversight into non-engine. You can't afford to draw too many non-engines unless your non-engine just draws you more cards, right? And so I decided to go with these 2. I already played Phantasme in my Runick Bestial for Bologna, so I was happy to add Mold Charmy to that pool of cards that just give you more cards going second, right? Rather than
the draw power in this deck is very important, so I kind of agree with these side deck options.
And citing more board breakers or whatever, I would rather just have
the more
cards
you draw,
that
the more your plays
get going
going
first, because I'm playing the evenly matched in my main deck, I need something that I can side in every single matchup. So I use 3 Ashes. It gives you at least a small chance to draw a hand trap against stuff like Gimmick Puppet FTK or something. It's unlikely that 1 hand trap is going to help against decks like that, but at least the chance is not 0. The same reasoning goes for 1 Effect Veiler, which in some matchups is better than Ash. You can search this off of the Arciela. Earlier I said it searches every Whitewood. It also searches any light spellcaster, so it can search Effect Veiler. I didn't feel like that was necessary for game 1 because if I'm comboing game 1, I am winning game 1 with this deck. You notice there's no Omni Negates in this deck, so if there's like an evenly matched and stuff like that, it can hurt. So post side, I would prefer to go for a line that searches an Effect Veiler than a line that combos super hard, right? Because then if your opponent evenlies, you can like keep the fountain, have an Effect Veiler.
The one of Effect Veiler is very important. You definitely want to have that as an option because it's nothing better than having an interaction, being able to be searched on your turn and being able to use it on your opponent's turn. So just another sweet add-on to it.
In hand, and maybe that's fine. And here's the annoying part of my side deck, and this is especially a big problem in this deck but also for other decks because the Lacrima burn exists in this format. You just have no choice but to play Dogwood and Scarlight simply because your deck does not have a battle phase. If they burn you for 1200, even if there's like 10 minutes left, you have like no chance of winning. Which
we are in a format of burning and also gaining life points right now. Dogwood is a tech. Anything that burns is a tech since not a Fiendsmith core can do that. So basically having a burn option or a gain life point option is a must this format.
Did happen in top 64, shocker. It was a problem that I was aware of beforehand with this deck. Like, I knew that was going to be a problem, but I wanted to play it, and so I played these to at least have a chance. It's a very annoying dynamic because it felt like game 1 was a real game. Game 2 was also often a real game, and game 3 in this tournament was very rarely a real game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That is in part because my deck is relatively slow, but obviously throughout the tournament you saw this card even in something like the winning Tenpai deck, which is normally a really fast deck, but even those decks have to be prepared for that situation at the moment. I wish that wasn't a part of it at the moment, but it is what it is. Speaking of which, the last card in my side deck is Rivalry. People are gonna call me a hypocrite for that. I do hate Floodgates, similar to Skill Drain, but if it means I can flip a card against Snake Eyes and just win the game off of it if they don't out it, I feel like it'd be stupid not to play it. The same goes for the Skill Drains in my main deck. This card is not good against every deck. It's not good against Tenpai. It's not as good against Yubel, so I decided not to main deck it. This deck does not really care. Once you've set up a board, you can play with either spellcasters or illusions. You can even just sit on like a Chaos Angel in a Rivalry. I did that once. The card should be banned, same as Seal Drain. As long as they're legal, decks are gonna play them. I won one game with this against Snake Eye, but that one, it did feel good because, you know, they are the overpowered Snake Eye deck, and I got hand trapped like 3 times, and so I was just like, okay, you know what? I'll just activate this Rivalry of the Warlords.
That is fair. The 1-0 Rivalry does come up against Snake Eye and a couple other decks, but it doesn't win against every deck, which is the good option. But I mean, if you play it and it wins, it is what it is. I mean, the format isn't fair. Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't fair, so you got to play what you got to play.
I enjoyed this deck. Part of me enjoyed the fact that it was an uphill battle. The Tenpai matchup is actually relatively good, even though I lost the Tenpai in round 1. I beat all of my Snake Eye opponents, even though I did get lucky a couple times, but that's always part of it. Obviously, I lost the round 8 feature match to Runick Stun, unfortunately, which is kind of ironic, I suppose. I definitely see the irony in that. And then I lost in top 64 to Rescue Ace. I had a good time with the deck. I think this deck is very, very strong and could potentially enter top tier in the future. It is not top tier right now because Snake Eye and Fiendsmith stuff in general does outshine it, and it has a specific problem with the burn that Fiendsmith does as well. So as long as the Fiendsmith engine is super meta, which is probably going to be for a while, the Runic version of this deck is going to struggle. But if the August ban list does some wonders, like these cards are phenomenal tuner engines. That's about it. Yeah, shoutouts to everyone who came up to me during the weekend, said hi.
Alright, so that's the deck profile. Joshua Smith, top 64, European WCQ, White Forest Runick deck profile. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Leave in the comment section what ideas y'all want to see next, what videos y'all want to see next, or even ideas for the White Forest decks that y'all want to see or see me talk about. So let's get in the comment section. Let's leave those comments. This your boy Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, comment, subscribe, share the videos. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so let's get there. Live streams every Saturday. So like, comment, subscribe, man. We on the way. So Yu-Gi-Oh! We out.